All right, any other questions of Mr. Dowswell? Hearing none, I'll open it up for public comment. Mr. Simmons? And then Mr. Drack?
I could have misconstrued things from the audience about that, but I was at that meeting, and some of the objections I heard to the project was, one, crowding of alleyways so people couldn't get out, that there was too many variations had to be allowed to make it fit. So it seemed to me like it was and the third thing was directing staff to figure out how to get some of the inconsistencies out of the zoning. And it seems to me, given the circumstances as I heard it in the audience, that denying the extension is appropriate in this case. Any questions what I said?
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Drack?
Marshall Drack on behalf of the respondent, Adam Asher. I'd like to ask for a little latitude in my remarks. Basically, we walked into the meeting 2 weeks ago with the understanding that staff recommended that you approve the time extension. The staff report says that the zoning and the project were not subject for your review that evening. In reviewing the zoning ordinance under which you conducted the appeal, we were prepared for you to modify the action appealed as deemed just and equitable, but within the terms of the zoning ordinance. In other words, it specifically says the city council may, within the terms of the zoning ordinance, affirm, reverse, or modify the action appealed as it deems just and equitable. The terms of the zoning ordinance are what you're allowed to look at, is the way we interpreted this, and the terms of the zoning ordinance specifically set forth the process for a time extension. If you apply within the year before it expires, the Planning Commission can grant approval. And that was done. So we came in with the expectation, staff recommended approval of the extension, that the only limited review you had before you was whether or not the applicant complied with the zoning ordinance by applying before the first year expired, which he did. And we ended up with an hour public hearing on zoning and variances and land use issues and the RM2 and how it fails to meet the needs of the city. And my client never had a chance to get up and present his project in defense of what the neighbors were saying, some of which was not accurate. And so we walked into what we thought was a procedural review, and those are my comments if you recall. What we ended up with was a de novo review. In other words, you looked at the project as if it were before you to approve or deny, yet we never got a chance to present the project. You never saw necessarily pictures of the plans, pictures of the neighborhood, pictures of the site, elevations of the project. The delay that caused this whole thing is the two banks he's dealing with went out of business, IndyMac and Washington Mutual. He can't get the people that have to sign the documents to get his lot line adjustment done, to get his building permit, because he can't find the people to sign the documents because those industries have been consumed by another bank in a takeover, a bailout. So the applicant has done nothing wrong. He's got an approved set of plans by the building department, signed off. The title company's waiting to find the people that would sign on the document to approve the lot line adjustment. So we walked in thinking we were going to have a procedural review. Did he or did he not have grounds for the Planning Commission to approve an extension? And we ended up with a full-blown battle over the project, the merits of the project. And he had no chance to present his side of that as a project applicant. And so I yield to the city attorney if I'm out of line, but this looks like a procedural review, and it turned into a full-blown merit review. And so what I would ask is you either reconsider your vote, or you think maybe to continue this and let Mr. Asher present at a continued hearing his project and let you look at what he's trying to do in that neighborhood. Because his neighbors are not just single-family people. His neighbors are duplexes, fourplexes, and industrial warehouses. So you may have the wrong impression of what you voted on. And I just think that that wasn't what we anticipated nor what you thought you were doing in light of our client or my client not making at least some information available to you from his side. So I'm prepared to put on the record my arguments against the findings and general overriding statements as to what I think you're doing that's wrong in the event my client chooses to appeal this to a higher authority. But I'd stop here if you're willing to think to continue or reconsider. And if that's not going to happen, then I have to put something on the record. So I can stop here if you'll give me a balance of the time, give me some direction, and let me come back and put on the record my objections if I have to.
All right. Well, before I respond, or perhaps any member of the council respond, I'll defer to our city attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the Planning Commission had the discretion whether or not to approve or deny the appeal. It's not merely a procedural matter as to whether or not the request for an extension was properly made. The commission is entitled to deny or approve that extension. Once the commission had approved the extension, the appeal to this council is then a de novo hearing, which is to say the council is in the same position that the commission was in. You may either approve the extension or you may deny it. The Planning Commission certainly had recommended approval, and therefore the respondent or the property developer in this particular case may have walked into the city council anticipating that the city council would take the same position for the same reasons that the Planning Commission did, but the city council certainly isn't required to do that. The Planning Commission is an advisory body, and you can thank them for their advice and decide something else, which is what you at least tentatively decided to do. The city council this evening may either adopt the resolution which would formally overturn the Planning Commission, grant the appeal, and thereby deny the extension, or because its decision at your last meeting was a tentative decision, you could decide you want to go back to where the Planning Commission was and sustain the Planning Commission. You're free to do that, although if you do that, we would probably again ask you to indicate that as a tentative decision, and we would bring back findings to support that conclusion. Or if the city council believes that in fact it may have misunderstood what it was looking at, as Mr. Drax suggests, and I don't know that that's the case at all, but if the city council believes that to be the case and it wishes to hear additional evidence, you could request your staff to renotice the public hearing, and it would require renoticing the hearing. And we would simply reopen the public hearing, and you could continue to hear whatever evidence anybody presented and then make a decision at that time.